When you've survived a traumatic event that just turned your life completely upside down, how do you take that moment in time and turn it into something that you actually celebrate as a rebirth in your life? I've been able to do that not just for myself, but I've been able to do that and model that for my daughter so that she didn't grow up hanging on to a day or a catastrophic event and all of the negative that was attached to that, and carry that forward with her into her future by watching me choose not to do that to myself or to us. We're going to be diving into the top 10 things that I did to celebrate a kidnapping, a home invasion, and turn that into something that was a complete rebirth in our lives in so many ways. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Soul Wide Open podcast with your host, author and certified trauma-informed coach, Michelle Renee.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Soul Wide Open with me, your host, Michelle Renee. Today is a really, really special day. And a lot of people had a really hard time understanding where I was coming from in terms of taking this day today and turning it into a day that I actually celebrate. I actually call it my second birthday because it was such a rebirth in my life on so many levels, in so many ways, that I literally can't even put those all into words. And I'm here in Turks and Caicos. I'm in this beautiful location, and it's the craziest thing. I had a couple of filmings on the books, and one of my videographers was going to go film one of them. I was going to film the other one. We had another one on the books that ended up getting canceled. And I get a call. And in the meantime, my car gets completely vandalized. It's in the shop. It's undrivable. They break in, break the windows, completely tear out the ignition and ruin the entire steering column, everything. It was unbelievable. I got home from another trip that I was filming an event and ended up going to get my car, and my car was just completely vandalized. So after all of this, it goes in the shop. I have to pay the deductible, and I'm going, oh my gosh, I stayed calm during the whole thing. And I'm like, well, I'm just gonna, stay calm, figure out, just take it in, get it towed, do all the things. And in the midst of all of that, I get a text from somebody. And she says, call me back. Or she's trying to call me and I'm on a business call and I can't take her call. And she hangs up and calls me and texts me back right away and says, call me as soon as you can. I've got the best gig for you. And I call her back as soon as I hang up from my meeting. And she goes, it's an event in Turks and Caicos. And their video guy just dropped out last minute because of some family things that were happening. And no one else on my team could actually step in and fly on a whim to Turks and Caicos for an entire week. So I'm like, okay, I'll do it. Bummer, right? Like, I'm not complaining. It's just, and I've never been to Turks and Caicos. So I was like, okay, very last minute, fly down to Turks and Caicos. I've never met any of these people. I'm a complete stranger to all of them and vice versa. And so I walk in and immediately they were so welcoming. And this group has been really an incredibly, for a lack of a better word, the most perfect group I could have ended up with this week. It is a very spiritual group. There's been many times where in the middle of this mastermind, part of it has been getting up and hugging each other. And it's been very compassion driven, very much about love and respect and honoring and all of that stuff. And so today is the anniversary of the kidnapping. And every single year, I have chosen year after year after year, starting with about, I think it was the third anniversary or the fourth anniversary of the crime, of the kidnapping and the home invasion, that I decided for this day that my daughter and I were going to drive to the old house where everything happened, and we were going to open the car doors and we were going to play music, and we were going to dance to some of our favorite music in a place that we loved for a long time before this happened. And we were going to choose to remember the great times that we had at that house. We were going to remember the Easter egg hunts when we hired like an Easter egg bunny, full-size Easter egg bunny to come out, the birthday parties, my mom's wedding. Like, we had so many amazing times at this house before the break-in, before the kidnapping, before the hostage situation. And starting in that moment, when we were at the house and we were reframing, sort of changing that narrative of that last memory that we had there of something being so horrific, and saying, you know what, that's not the memory. That isn't the final memory of this place that we want to carry forward, or that I want to carry forward. And it's my responsibility to teach my daughter that we can do this and reframe this and choose not to carry it forward, and teach that to her as well. And so today I'm actually in Turks and Caicos. I end up here on a whim with this incredible group of people. And part of the day today was snorkeling out in the ocean. So I'm capturing, I'm videoing and, taking photos of everybody, snorkeling and together and having fun. And then everybody jumps in the water and I'm the last one on the boat. And I put the camera down and I jump in and I get to snorkel. And it was almost ceremonial, that because water is cleansing and it's healing, and the ocean is so calming and feminine yet powerful, and so many things. I love being on the water. So it was just no accident that I actually ended up on the water today and snorkeling and just seeing these beautiful fish and the beautiful reef. And then we get back and I decide that I'm on my way walking to my room to drop off my gear. And I'm walking by the pool and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to put my gear down on this lounge chair right here and I'm going to hop in the water. I already have my bathing suit on from the snorkeling. So I'm just going to go in the pool. There was no one in the pool. I was completely alone in the pool because it was getting ready to shut down. It was sunset. The sky was bright orange. It was absolutely incredible. And I'm in the pool. I'm by myself. And I'm just having this moment that reminded me of everything about this day that I celebrate as a rebirth. And then it's not even over. I come back, I'm making myself some tea, I'm doing my routine before I have to go film the evening event. And I get to the evening event and I shoot the big group photo and all of that good stuff. And then they say, we're gonna go do this thing on the beach and it's nighttime. They're like, come with us. We go to the beach and they do they call a circle of love and a circle of trust. So everybody gets in a circle on the beach at night and they go around the circle and you name the person, you start with a person, and someone else in the group says, I'll take that person. And they have to tell that person one thing that they love and appreciate about that person. And it went around the whole group and I was included in that. And it was so special. It was so magical. And it was absolutely no accident that this was all happening on the anniversary of the kidnapping that I choose every single year to celebrate as a rebirth, to celebrate as a complete awakening in my life in so many amazing, amazing ways. That didn't happen overnight. There were a couple of years of really, really serious trauma, PTSD, healing, therapy. I mean, figuring out so much about my life that had been completely transformed in every way you can imagine. Losing my career, losing my home, having a full-blown identity crisis, being a single mom of a totally traumatized child that was no longer the child that I had before this incident and helping her through her trauma, dealing with my trauma and the PTSD that was just so heavy duty. So there were a couple of years of that. But at some point, we have to decide how we are going to live the rest of our lives and how we are going to choose to think about and experience this day or this anniversary every single year. And it really became important to me that I didn't consider this a day that ruined my life or ruined anything. Yes, I lost my home. Yes, I lost my career. Yes, my daughter became a different child who was now in the world completely differently than she ever had been. I was in the world in a similar way, different than I ever had been, although I grew up in a really violent home. I came from a lot of generational trauma, a lot of complex trauma and childhood trauma. So for me, I had lived in a world of violence and trauma before, but my daughter never had. And so navigating all of that was so much. But at what point do we decide and make the choice that we are no longer going to let this control our life and continue to perpetuate the negative forces around that event that invaded our life at that moment in time? We don't have to take that negativity and those negative forces and adopt them as part of our life forever. We can choose to reframe and transform that experience into something really powerful. And I really want to talk about the top 10 things that I focused on to be able to turn this insanely catalytic event that shifted everything for us. And notice I'm not saying the event that ruined everything for us. There's a way that we can move forward and change our narrative and our language around the traumatic events that we have survived. And we're going to get into my top 10 ways to change the narrative around the traumatic event that changed your life so that you can choose to celebrate it as a rebirth, as an awakening. So, number one, this is really hard to hear for so many people. I get it. You have to acknowledge and accept the trauma. The longer we reject this, the longer we reject the trauma and we're angry. What does anger do? Anger repels. And in order for us to be able to move forward, we have to accept and acknowledge this is a fact that happened to me. And in fact, it could be, if we reframe this, something that happened for me. And I didn't find out for a long time what this actually could have done for me. I couldn't fathom what the heck could this possibly be that could be for my benefit, for my daughter's benefit. But it was in the moment that I chose to celebrate this day as a rebirth and an awakening and begin to ask myself different questions and say, okay, this happened. It's a fact. I'm not going to stop asking why, because that is just a waste of time and energy, and start asking myself, how can I move forward? What can I learn from this? I acknowledge that this happened. I accept that this happened. What am I meant to learn? How can I grow? Those are the important questions that we need to be asking ourselves in order to flip that script. Number two, we have to seek support. It's super important that we, not only friends and family, because a lot of our friends and family, they know us before the trauma. So for me, a lot of my friends and family, they didn't even know how to talk to me. They didn't know how to approach me. They don't know what to say when you have something this catastrophic happened and you're so damaged and wounded and afraid and you have PTSD and They have no idea. They're not equipped. They're not trained professionals to know how to talk to somebody in that type of traumatic shock. And the Michelle that they knew before that, was the go-getter and positive and very social, I wasn't any of those things immediately following the trauma. So Bria and I actually went to therapy for, it was almost 2.5 years that we were in trauma therapy. And we went through extensive cognitive behavioral therapy that was absolutely amazing for us. And so number 2, seek support, seek professional help, whether it's in the spiritual community, whether it's in the professional therapeutic community, and definitely seek support from your family and friends, but don't expect them to be your therapist. And understand that they don't know this side of you or this new part of you, and they're just learning right along with you how to navigate this just like you are, just in a different way. So get all the support that you need, and don't be afraid to say, I'm hurting, I'm freaking out. I don't even know who I am. I don't know how to associate with people anymore. I don't know how to navigate this. I need help. So seek support. Super, super critical. Number 3, reframe the narrative. How we reframe that narrative is by reflecting on the lessons and the strength that it took to survive that and get through that. And instead of being in this sort of state of anger and resentment and fear, I really, really began to be proud of myself for how we got through that, how I got through that as a mother, how I got through that as a woman, as a single woman, how I didn't allow that to affect the way that I view men in the world, and the way I didn't want my daughter to be affected in terms of how she viewed men in the world. And choosing to shift the mindset from, why did this happen to me, to what can I create out of this? What can I learn from this? How can I grow? How can I impact other people's lives in a positive way because of this? So again, number 3, really, and write it down. Get a pen and a piece of paper, get on your phone in your notes app, and really start writing down the different ways that you can totally reframe this narrative into something that's really powerful and really, really positive. Number 4, this is one of the big, big, big things that I do on a daily basis. You just heard me say I'm here in a hotel in Turks and Caicos, and I'm still coming back to my room, escaping from all of the hecticness of the big crowds and the noise and everything, to come back here, and I have incense and I have tea, and I sit in the quiet, and I light an incense and a candle and tea. I do things that are all about self-compassion, that are all about self-regulation in terms of my nervous system. And so that is a big, big one for me. Number 4, engage in healing practices. And that can mean a lot of different things. But the biggest part of that is ensuring that you're being very, very gentle with yourself, that you're getting out of that headspace of blaming yourself in any way for what happened and carrying around guilt for what happened, which I completely experienced in the immediate aftermath of the kidnapping. Like, how did I not know they were stalking me for 2 months? What could I have done to prevent this and protect my daughter more? I mean, I went through, the guilt was so heavy in the immediate aftermath of this, and I had to, again, navigate to a place where I could understand that this was not my fault in any way. There was nothing I could have done at all, and instead really be gentle with myself and get to a place where I was practicing self-care on a very, very deep level every single day. And not only was that really good for me, but for my daughter to see me doing that. She just turned 31, and I see the ways that she now in her life has carried those forward in her own life, which is just really, really cool to see. Number 5, creating meaning is all about identifying how this traumatic event and the trauma helped you refocus on your priorities in your life and what really, really matters in your life. Before the kidnapping, my priorities, even though I was a great mom, or I thought I was a great mom, I was working like 14 hours a day. I had before school care and after school care taking care of my daughter. I spent maybe 3 quality hours a day with her because I was so focused on my career, thinking that that was the best example I could be for her as a single mom. That I could, have this great corporate job and all of these things. I mean, this event absolutely put into crystal clear focus what my priorities needed to be and what my values were. That I had a lot, some of them, I might even dare to say a lot of them, I had abandoned in the busyness of life, and really bringing into focus what a life filled with purpose was about. And that has probably been one of the greatest gifts of all in all of this, is that my priorities and my values and my life is filled with purpose like it's never been before. So create meaning out of all of this. Identify what those are for you. What are those priorities that have come into focus that you let slip before whatever happened? You're still here. What do those priorities look like? What are those values that you need to bring back to life? What does a life of purpose really look like for you now? Number 6, mark the transition. Create a symbolic ritual that signifies the shift for you, that signifies the release and the letting go of the pain and the fear and the anger and the hate and the resentment and all of those things that aren't serving you and never will serve you in a positive way. They're absolutely blocking the light from coming in and the light from pouring out of you that is literally just begging to come out of you. You can do this by writing a letter to your past self. You can plant a tree and signify growth. There's so many things that you can do that you can mark the transition and create a ritual that you can do every single year that reminds you that you have come so, so, so far in your healing journey. Number 7, celebrate the growth. Take a trip somewhere. If you like champagne, get the best bottle of champagne. If you love nature, plan a weekend getaway. Celebrate the growth that you have had every single year, year over year. What has that growth been? For me this year, this has been a really big year of growth for me, because it's been a year where I shed a lot of layers physically. I decided that I didn't want to hang on to the weight that I had been carrying for a very, very, very long time. And this year I actually shed 50 pounds. And I had been carrying that weight around since the kidnapping as kind of a protective layer, as a way to hide, as a way to not be noticed. And that was part of my healing that I had been hanging on to, that I needed to address. That was the sort of the last piece of it for me. And this was the year that I did that. And it's been an amazing year of growth for me. I'm totally celebrating that today by being in a bikini today, on a boat, jumping in the water in front of all kinds of people, not even thinking twice about my body and what other people were thinking of me. That never even crossed my mind. I just was celebrating being there and jumping in the water and loving who I am and my body and where I am and the blessings and the growth and everything. Like get to that place where you're really celebrating your growth. And you can even write down, what ways do I want to grow in this next year? Set some goals for yourself for growth every single year. Every single year, celebrate your growth. It's important and it matters a lot. Number 8, share your story. A lot of people have a difficult time with this because there's shame attached to a lot of traumas that happened to us. Certainly for me there was, especially the childhood trauma that I survived. Not necessarily the kidnapping, but the childhood trauma, definitely. There was a lot of shame attached to that. And before the kidnapping happened and they broke the door down, it just kind of broke everything wide open. And then the trial happened. And in the trial and in the newspapers and on the news and everywhere, the defense attorneys attacked me and attacked my past and attacked me because of my past and because of my life. Way, way, way before this kidnapping that had nothing to do with any of it. And it was blasted everywhere. And in that moment, I decided no one's ever going to be able to blindside me with my own past ever again. I am going to be so open and so honest and so authentic about my life and my past that no one's ever going to be able to blindside me with bringing up stuff about my own life ever again, because I've allowed shame to silence me and be embarrassed about my life. And that's just not the case anymore. So this entire event actually broke me open in so many ways that I'm so grateful for, which is why I started this podcast. I want to share. I want to connect with other people who have gone through traumatic events and inspire them to heal and celebrate their transformation with them, because I know firsthand that it is entirely possible to get there. And if I can inspire even one person by doing this podcast to get there, then it's completely worth it for me. So use your experience to inspire others. Use your experience to educate people. Use your experience to allow people to get to know you. Use your experience to be vulnerable, because when you're vulnerable, it gives other people permission to be vulnerable too. And there is so much beauty and value in people just being vulnerable and allowing themselves to connect on a deeper level. That's where healing happens. We don't heal alone. We heal when we connect with others. So I encourage you to share your story and start with little baby steps. But really start by sharing your story. And if you need any tips on how to do that, if you have questions on how to do that, how to take those baby steps, just get on over to Instagram _Michelle Renee _ and send me a DM, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about that and help you in any way that I can help you to get there. Because actually, once you start sharing your story, I can't really explain it. It's like this total sense of freedom. It's like the big heavy bags just dropped off and I'm just light as a feather. And I just feel like I'm not, like I've been walking around for years not able to exhale because I'm just holding everything in and holding everything in. And it is the biggest relief in the world when you can just say, I am so wide open and honest about my life. Bring it on. Ask any question that you want to ask. And I'm going to share that with you because I have nothing to hide. And I'm not hanging on to any of that baggage at all anymore at all. So get out there, share your story. Number 9, commit to new beginnings. Commit to focusing on what is ahead of you. Not hyper-focused on everything in the rearview mirror. You're staring in the rearview mirror, that you're not looking at the road ahead, because guess what happens when you do that? You will crash. If you're driving a car and you're only looking in the rearview mirror and you're not looking at the road ahead, what's going to happen? You are going to crash and you're going to hurt yourself and you're going to hurt other people. It is the same exact thing when we're healing from our traumas. If you are completely hyper-focused on what is in the rearview mirror and not the road ahead, healing and emotional resiliency is pretty much going to be impossible. So how do you commit to new beginnings? What are your goals? I just said, write your goals down. What are your dreams? How do you want to transform your life from this event into something really powerful and positive and transformative? And you can motivate people and you can inspire people, but a lot of times inspiration and motivation, they're just kind of like a spark. They come and they go. But when you commit to transformation, that's real change. That's real healing. I just signed up to get my trauma healing practitioner's license, a certification. Go after it. And I mean, I'm middle-aged and I'm still seeking knowledge and I'm still seeking everything that I can possibly do to learn and to grow and to be able to help other people transform. Like, what is important to you? If something's really important to you and it's calling you, go after it. It's not going to show up at your doorstep in a FedEx box. It's not. Get up, get out, get after it and commit to new beginnings. Number 10, last but definitely not least, honor the complexity of it all. This is complex. This isn't easy. This isn't black or white. This is a very complex, can be very complicated. It's not an overnight thing. This is the long game. This is an absolute long game. Healing from trauma, especially complex trauma and generational trauma and childhood trauma and violent trauma and even adulthood that, really, really were, very personal, sexual, intimate traumas are very, very complex to navigate. And all of those emotions and rediscovering ourselves in a new way and going through an identity crisis that is sometimes so, so severe and it's so, so painful. I get it. I've totally been there. Honor the fact that it is complex. This is where being gentle with yourself really comes into play. It is complex, but it's not impossible to overcome. Recognize that celebrating this and reframing this as a rebirth and an awakening does not erase the trauma and how difficult that was and how painful that was and how painful it still can be sometimes. It doesn't erase anything. It just means that you are finally the one taking a stand for yourself and saying, I'm not going to let that event control me for the rest of my life. Allow yourself to hold space for grief and gratitude. They can coexist. They do coexist all the time. You can sit and be present with your grief. You can remember all the things that you lost. You can mourn those losses. It's a loss of a dream for me. It was a loss of a career. It was a loss of a house. It was a loss of a child that I raised for 7 years who just changed overnight. There was so much loss attached to what happened to us. And at the same exact time, I can sit and be fully present in my gratitude for everything that this has allowed me to understand, that has allowed me to grow into the person I've become because of this, the focus on compassion, the focus on understanding, the focus on forgiveness and love and really living life to the fullest, which is what this podcast is all about. Living my life with my soul wide open after violent trauma. It's all because I do understand that it is complex, and I do hold space completely for myself to say, this was catastrophic in so many ways. This hurt me in so many ways. There was so much grief involved, but I'm so grateful. I honor this. I honor my path, all of it, because I'm still here. I really, really hope that this has helped you understand that you can transform your trauma into a brand new chapter of resilience and empowerment and meaningful, and celebrate the brand new, amazing person that you have become out of all of this. I really hope you like this episode. It's really, really special to me. If you like it, love it, share it, hit the heart button, tell all your friends about it, come visit me on Instagram, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks for tuning in.